Hi, I'm Dr. David Hilmers, and I'm very happy to be here today. By way of background, I went to the university and had earned a degree in mathematics. Later on, I got 2 graduate degrees in electrical engineering, and then was fortunate enough to be selected as a NASA astronaut. So what we're looking at on this picture appears to be what we call a lunar rille. A lunar rille is a long, narrow depression on the moon's surface. And you might think of this as an enormous ditch or maybe a small canyon, certainly not on the scale of the Grand Canyon, for example. However, lunar rilles can be very long, maybe over 100 miles in length, and they can be quite wide as well. Some of them are over a mile wide. Their depth can be several hundred feet or more, but their depth is certainly on a scale of the diameter of the moon is a very, very small proportion of the size of the moon. Lunar geologists usually categorize lunar rilles into one of 3 types depending on their shape. One type of lunar rille is called a sinuous rille, and that is one that wanders or meanders, and it's got many, many curves. A second type is called the arcuate rille, and this type of rille has a very smooth curve. The third type is called a straight or linear rille, which is, as its name implies, is very straight. Each type of lunar rille seems to have, or is thought to have, a different origin. As to the question, do these rilles or similar structures exist on other planets or moons? It's thought that rilles or similar structures do exist on other moons or other planets in our solar system. It's thought that the mechanism might be different than the mechanism that formed the rilles on the moon. One might ask, do these rilles constitute proof that the moon split at one time or the other? And it's thought that lunar rilles form through volcanic activity or by shifts in fault lines, much like we have here on Earth when earthquakes form. It's thought that if there was any type of split that was sufficient to cut the moon in half, for example, that this would be an event that was so cataclysmic that would be catastrophic to the moon itself, and that its orbit would have shifted in a way that we probably would have detected this. So there's no real evidence that we have that at any time in past history that the moon actually split. Some of the main theories about how lunar rilles formed are through volcanic activities, whether they're channels of lava flow that form these meandering type of rilles, or if it's through a large flow over what we call the seas of the moon that cause these rilles, which would be more like the arcuate rilles. And it's finally thought that the straight rilles or the linear rilles were actually caused by earthquake-like activity on the moon, in which fault lines shifted and caused cracks in the moon's surface. As far as the timing of the formation of lunar rilles, it's really impossible for scientists to put a precise date on the date of their formation. However, it's thought that these rilles, whether they're on the moon or on other planets, formed at various points in the history of the solar system. And it probably occurred over a very long period of time based on the evidence that we have, rather than on one single event. I'm not a planetary scientist, but there is no report that I've ever seen or have heard of that states that the moon at any time in its history split into 2 parts. I think that as a scientist, though, we can look at the results of such an event. It would had to have been a cataclysmic or catastrophic event that would have irrevocably affected the shape and the orbit of the moon. It couldn't have been remained in a stable orbit if that had actually happened.